Kim konuşuyorsa ona bir şey
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to chair the panel today. I am very pleased to have two esteemed colleagues who are going to present their papers on the Arab Spring or Arab majority uprisings or Arab majority revolutions. It has quite a few terms that describe basically what you can call challenges to authoritarianism in the region that had very, very different trajectories from to Tunisia, where you had more or less a fragile democratic transition process going through and so it was able to sustain itself despite the polarization and the challenges, to Egypt, where you had a predominance of the military establishment after a brief period of transition between 2011 and 2013, to Libya, where you have a situation which is more and more turning towards armed conflict and less towards a democratic transition process, to of course Libya, to of course Syria and Yemen, where you have the more intense conflict, armed conflict in Syria, and a political process in parallel with an armed conflict in Yemen. To Bahrain, where things did not really go through and the regime was not toppled or threatened that much, mainly because of regional interventions. So some of these issues I think will be discussed throughout the panel. The way we're going to do this is maybe 20 minutes for each of the speakers, and then after that we're going to open it for discussion. So without any further ado, I'm going to leave the floor initially to Mr. Ali Sarihan from the University of Nottingham, who is going to present on the Arab uprisings, social movement, revolution, or democratization. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and hello, everyone. My name is Ali Sarihan, and I'm coming from the University of Nottingham, UK. Today, I'm going to present my research, which is titled In Search of the Arab Uprisings and Social Movement, Revolution or Democratization. And I will try to give answer what is the Arab Uprisings in my research. I will begin my presentation with the collective action. Collective action is precondition and also important prerequisite to social movement, because if people don't work together and if people don't work together against a specific target with a specific goals, there could be only some growth rather than a substantive or important social movement. That's why Charles Tilly in 1970 had said the collective action consists of pupils acting together in pursuit of common interests. And in my research, I'm saying the collective action and collective behavior are the foundation and also the cement of social movement. But of course, not all collective actions lead to a social movement. Some of them can result in some outbursts, such as mass panic, which doesn't have specific goal or which doesn't have specific agenda to redefine or restructure the society or the values and norms of society. But Della Porte and Diani in this point says, if collective action can succeed to go beyond some specific events and some specific initiatives, there could be social movement. And collective action in this point is very important, because when people move together, they minimize their differences. And collective behavior also strengthens the relations between the different segments and different factions of the society in any state. So the first floor or first stage in my presentation is collective action. And the next one or the second one after collective action is social movement. In social movement, we have to ask the question, so why social movement emerges in a society? Or why social movement emerged in Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, but not in United States? Or why not in Sweden or Switzerland? And my answer is that collective action and also social movement emerged in a society because of the large dissatisfaction in some specific class or some classes. And the reason for dissatisfaction is, first, the lack of possessions, lack of status, lack of behavior, and lack of worth. Of course, there could be many more reasons to dissatisfy the people in any state, but if you look at the social movements in history and in the 21st and 20th century, there are 4 reasons coming out as the main points. Dissatisfaction, of course, is not alone for a social movement. In addition to the dissatisfaction for a social movement, the unsatisfied people need to, in fact, more than need, they must share and also they must recognize their dissatisfaction. And second stage, they also need to know, the unsatisfied people need to know what they have and what they don't have. I mean, they should know they have capability, or they should know they have capacity to be able to change the society. It's important to prevent your undervalue or overvalue of what you have or what you don't have. And as a last condition for a social movement, David Cameron said in 1966, the conditions in the state or the conditions in the society should be proper. And Charles Tilly calls that as resource mobilization theory. It means the people should have at least some spaces to be able to move together. And the state should give them at least some spaces for the people to get together, to be organized, and also to access each other. And it is the last conditions to see a social movement in any state. We also need to know the types of social movements to be able to say what is social movement and what a social movement is not. And for the typology of social movements, I'm looking at the David Aberla, and he said, if we are trying to classify social movements, we need to look at them from the 2 perspectives. The first one is the locus of change, and the second one is the amount of change. The locus of change is the social movement is trying to change the entire society, or they trying to just change some parts of the society. I mean, they are looking at the individuals or the entire society. The locus is that. And the amount of change is they are saying we need reform or revolution. And I'm going to explain in the next presentation what is reform and revolution. And based on the awareness, the locus and the amount of change, I'm saying there are 4 main types of social movements: transformative or revolutionary, reformative, redemptive, and alternative social movements. So Arab uprisings. So what is the Arab uprisings? So we know what is the collective action, and also I explained the next stage of collective action social movement. So where's Arab uprisings in this place? I'm saying Arab uprising was a social movement. Why? Because there was dissatisfaction. There was, in fact, large dissatisfaction between the Egyptians, Libyans, Tunisians. And then, in addition to the dissatisfaction, the people had some specific and some planned goals. They expressed what are they looking for. And the third one, I'm saying, also the unsatisfied people shared, and they got connection with each other. The other point in the Arab uprising, we saw the people declared what they are looking for. It's important for a social movement, if you don't have an agenda, you become only large crowd rather than a movement. Or just that people protest someone, but they don't know what they are looking for. In the Arab uprising cases, I am saying people said what they want. They said bread, freedom, and dignity. That's why I'm saying they had some clear agenda. That's why I'm saying it is the the Arab uprising can be classified in a social movement literature. But my question is here coming out, do not social movements disappear? I mean, do not social movements decline after a while? And the answer is of my research is that yes, the social movement after a while, maybe short, maybe long time later, they decline. And the Miller in the 1999 said the social movement declines because of the repression. The repression can come out from the government or external powers. And the social movement declines because of co-optation. Or social movement declines because of failure by themselves. And the last one, the social movement declines because they become successful. The first three one is understandable. But the success looks interesting. Why a successful social movement declines? The decline means here social movement is upgrading to the next level. So collective action, social movement, and when social movements become successful, it moves to next stage, which is reform and revolution. That's why I am saying when a social movement becomes successful, we need to classify them in revolutionary or reformative social movements. Reform versus revolution. We need to know reform is different from the revolution. And the difference is very simple. Reform deals with limited changes. Reform says we don't have to change entire society. We don't have to change entire structure of state. Just we need some reforms in some parts of the state, society, or whatever. But revolution says no, there is not any place for the former one in the new place. So the revolution says we need to change. But reform says no, we need to make some maybe partial changes in the part of the state. That's why I am saying reform is change within system, but revolution is change of system. It is the basic difference between reform and revolution. If I go back my research, the Arab uprisings, I'm saying we can classify Morocco, Algeria, and Yemen in social movements place because the uprisings emerged in the Morocco, Algeria, and Yemen. Even it wasn't strong like Egypt, Tunisia, and Libya. The people protest their rulers. And after the protest, or after this resistance maybe, the rulers in these three cases made some reformative changes. That's why I am saying we need to say the Morocco, Algeria, and Yemen represent reformative social movement. But the fact is that the reforms after the uprisings became cosmetic changes. The professor, I forgot his name, from George Washington, says the cosmetic changes emerge in the three places because there is no change of system rather than some shadow changes. That's why I am saying these three cases are not revolutionary. It is reformative, even cosmetic, or not exactly reform. And I need to make a quick summary. I started with collective action, then social movement, then reform, social movement, and reform, and right now I'm at the revolution. So what's the revolution? The revolution is Skocpol, Ted Skocpol from Princeton says, social revolutions are rapid, basic transformations of a society, states, and class structures. But we need to keep in mind that social revolutions are not political revolutions. Because political revolutions only change political structure. But social revolutions bring changes all the entire society. So the social revolution is much wider than political revolution. Arab Spring, Arab uprisings, or Egypt, Libya, and Tunisia, I'm saying, fall into the category of political revolution, even not social revolution. I'm saying they represent political revolution because after the Arab uprisings, the location of the political sovereignty changed from the undemocratically elected rulers to democratically elected ones. There is no social revolution yet because we haven't seen revolution in the social and economic structure. But for now, at least we can say the political revolution emerged in these three places. I'm gonna mention the July coup in Egypt, but the definition political revolution came to, the political revolution in Egypt can be correct until the July 2013 coup. The coup changed everything. Oh, where am I? No. Sorry. The next stage in my presentation after revolution is democratization. So collective action, social movement, reform, revolution, and democratization. We need to know that revolution is only one of the ways to bring a democracy in a state. Revolution is not the only way for a democracy, but only one of the ways. And we also should remember 1974 Carnation Revolution in Portugal is an excellent example to know how revolution emerged and how democracy came to a state after revolution. But at the same time, we also need to know the Bolshevik Revolution, 1917, also brought autocracy in a state. So revolution is a way for a democracy, but revolution doesn't guarantee democracy in a state. Democratization and democracy. So democratization is a process, and if the process becomes successful, we can see that democracy. So democracy is the result of the democratization. And Robert Dahl says, for a democracy, we should have two things, at least two things. The first one, the public contestation, which is liberalization, and the second one, the right to participate, inclusiveness. So, in other words, the society should be free and the society should be inclusive. They are the two basic conditions for a democracy. And if you look at how democratization emerges in a society, I'm saying, in fact, I'm not saying, the Shin says there are four ways. The first one is the decay of authoritarian rule. So authoritarian rule is starting to collapse. And the second stage is transition from autocracy to democracy. And the third is consolidation. And the last stage is the maturing of democratic political order. The four stages is the points of how democratization emerges in a state. Of course, they are not the only ways, but they are the basic or main types of democratization. Before ending my presentation, I also need to point out some important points, at least some important points for me. We need to know, and also we need to accept that democratization is not an economic model. All Gulf states are rich. They have millions of dollars, but none of them are democratic. We also need to know that democracy is not bringing economic welfare and economic stability in a state. Democracy is not for economic welfare. And democracy and democratization is not secularism, because democracy has no religion. And Arab uprising states, Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, even Gulf states in the next years, can be democratic without becoming Western, because democratization is not Westernization. Democratization is modernization, and modernization is different from the Westernization. Every Western state can be democratic, but every democratic state doesn't have to be Western or or part of the Western world. So I'm saying our present states can be democratic states without becoming secular, Western, or maybe rich. I think the point is important, and this is why we had the coup in July in Egypt, because the 40% of the Egyptians live, I think, 1 point per day, just one pounds or $1. I'm not sure exactly. So £1, $1 per day. So people were expecting from the Mohamed Morsi economic welfare, but they saw that if you don't have economic source, democracy is not bringing you petrol. Democracy is not bringing you money from the foreign world. So the biggest threat of democratization in the places, Middle East and North Africa, first, people need to know and people should decide what exactly they are looking for. They are looking for bread, freedom, or dignity. They need to decide. And from the outside, I'm saying the threat is Western biasness. It is also important because Western world means here the Europe and the America should accept that the people or the states in the Middle East and North Africa don't have to drink coke. They don't have to get dressed jeans. Because when you drink coke, you don't become democratic. So the imposition from the foreign world got angry. That's why the Bashar Assad is still surviving in Syria. Because some people in Syria sees Assad as an anti-Western. So they say we need to support Assad, otherwise we are going to become the hegemony of the Western world. So Western world, Europe and America should try to help the people, not impose anything. Conclusion. So my conclusion is that the Arab uprisings were initially a social movement. And later on, the social movement concluded revolution, reform, and some of the social movements became abortive, it was unsuccessful. And Egypt, until 2013 military reactionary coup, Libya and Tunisia constitute revolutionary social movements. Because the rulers, Hosni Mubarak, Ben Ali, and also Gaddafi, have been replaced with the new ones. We also, I think, need to know that they change the ruling system, not the rulers. And democratization in these three cases is in progress, and Egypt, it is broken already, unfortunately. But Libya, and the best case is Tunisia, is still trying to become a democratic state. Algeria, Morocco, and Yemen emerge as reformative social movements. They couldn't go beyond some cosmetic and superficial reforms, unfortunately. Jordan, Oman, and Bahrain can be classified in the place of just some protest or some insurrectionary movement rather than a social movement. Probably some of you think so. Where is Syria? I'm not mentioning Syria in my research because I made this research almost 2 years ago and unfortunately I couldn't update until now. For Syria, I can say two things. The first one, the Syria is proxy war. The proxy war means the United States, Turkey on the one hand, Iran and Soviet Russia on the other hand. And the proxy war is placing in Syria. And in proxy war, we need to look at three things. The first one, interest. Second, ideology. Third, security. If the states, the superpowers, United States, Turkey, Iran, Soviet Russia, if they see their interest, their security, or their ideology is in danger, they will continue to the proxy war. This is the first one. And the second one, the Syrian war is civil war. And in civil war, we have big dilemma, which is peace versus justice. I mean, you have to, not always, but most of the times, you have to make sacrifice from the one of them. You need to choose peace or justice. If you say, no, I have to end the war, civil war, but it should be just. And also, there should be peace. It's too hard. It's almost impossible. So you need to say, okay, I'm gonna make some sacrifice from the justice. For example, Bashar Assad. Okay, he's gonna stay the power. Let's accept that. But we need to have a peace. You can do that. Or you can say, no, we will fight until the justice comes to the state. Then you can fight for a long time. This Syrian example is similar to Bosnia case. You know the Ali Izetbegovic. He said, I know Dayton agreement is not fair. He said, I know that, but I have to end the war. Otherwise, my nation is gonna die. So he made sacrifice from the justice. He chose peace. And from my perspective, in Syria, the people should decide what they're exactly looking for, peace or justice. I think it is done. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much. I have a few issues and questions I have to raise later, but I'll now give the floor to Professor Ömer Çivici from Gerson University, and he's going to speak to us about the Arab uprisings, revolution or counter-revolution, question mark.
Good morning, everyone. In this study, I analyzed the uprisings for Arab Springs within the context of revolution and counter-revolution. Arab Spring uprisings are generally named as a revolution. However, the question whether these uprisings are a revolution or counter-revolution should be asked. It is important to put these uprisings in place in the war of history in accordance with the answer we obtained in return to this question. Religion was a tool to legitimize government and authority. Together with the age of enlightenment in 18th century, with progress in, but not limited with Europe, religion started to was this function and the resource of the authority secularized. Social structures that revealed as a result of secularization of authority, reformist action, Renaissance, and Industrial Revolution caused a struggle of power. As a result of this power struggle, revolutions arose, developed a significant change and transformation over the world. Revolutions evolved when the relations between social structures as a country reached a point of crisis, but these are not limited within the country. Any transnational relations of such societal structures and or any transnational crisis faced by countries can also have an accelerating role in revolutions. Transnational crises contributed to all revolutionary crises and assisted the formation of revolutionary struggle and their results. The changes within the international system structure, particularly in the structured states take place, affect the revolutions that are encountered in transnational context. In the meantime, as Scotchwell states, the changes and expansion in wartime that affect all of the world context in which revolutions develop and certain action models and preferences that can be borrowed from abroad by the revolutionist leaders affect the internal structure. War develops political and economic crises that become chronic causes depreciation of established political authorities and structural state institutions, and besides them cause social conflicts. Conclusively, although revolutions affect international structure, the newly risen regimes are limited and conditioned by the international structure. Revolutions become successful in some of the countries, but also fall in other and can be beaten by the current regimes. Here we face the question that what is the basic factor that enables the success of a revolution? According to the the most efficient factor in success or failure of revolutions is the power of current regimes and internal coping rather than the effect of revolutions. Revolutions are important incidents that cause significant changes in the world history, starting from the French Revolution in 1789 to Russian Revolution in 1917 and Islamic Iran Revolution in 1979. Revolutions change and transform the organization, styles, social structures, and dominant ideologies of the state. As Teres Kochval states, the nations where revolutions realized are increasing their power significantly compared to their previous states, and such nations leave other countries behind which are in similar state. Revolutions are not limited in the geographical borders of the country where they are encountered. For example, French Revolution expanded far after 1790s, and also Russian Revolution expanded far after 1917. However, the progress of both revolutions was actually enabled by the regimes where these revolutions realized. For example, France became a conqueror force in the continent of Europe. Similarly, Russia started to be a particular actor in world politics after 1917 revolution and became a superpower after the Second World War. A similar power increase realized in Iran, also after Islamic Revolution. Iran could increase its effect on Islamic countries both through direct and indirect methods by means of its revolution export policy. Its anti-Western and anti-Israel policy and discourses made it a country which was more considered in world politics. Counter-revolution is also encountered in societies in crisis either it is political, economic, or social. Counter-revolution demolished a new political order and restores to the previous state, or sometimes by means of creating a new order that deserves a high respect by including customary values that is far beyond the previous conservatism as seen in Italy and Germany. During the period between two wars, fascism was a product of capitalism crisis which was internally threatened by the collapse of the financial, social, and political structures that progressed and protected it, and externally threatened by the revolutionist socialism. Building highways and conducting great public works such as drainage of marshes in Italy, reconstructing the center of Berlin in a monumental scale and transforming the city Germania, changing the education system on radical basis in order to produce fascist or Nazi values on social basis. All of these were indications of a subjective revolution. Both regimes had preparations in great scale to evolve humanistic and physical resources of their nations in order to follow up with their land assertions on Europe and the efforts of Nazis to realize their program in order to create a true blood and culture. Turkey as the most effective evidence of revolutionist movement of fascism survived in a terrifying scope. Fascism and Nazism functioned as a political ritual aimed to establish a new collective sense of belonging and acceptation for the people who were overwhelmed as a result of the deep social crisis. Fascism and Nazism aimed to create a new type of human state and age. One of the important changes in wartime became the end of Cold War. In countries where the majority of the population is Muslim, Islamic fundamentalism started to be expanded after Cold War. Francis Fukuyama, who had a significant effect with his book titled End of the History and the Last Month, that was written in order to give meaning to the war of 1990s, suggested that this expansion can be considered as a reaction since Muslim society turned to nothing against Western society. Fukuyama thinks that most of Islamic countries cannot harmonize the things they take from the West with their own lifestyles, and modernization in the 19th century and in the beginning of the 20th century could not reach the expected political and economic success. More probably as a result of this failure in success, Islamic fundamentalism reborn by Iran Revolution in 1979. Traditional values developed as a result of this report were neither the traditional values of Islamic society before Westernization nor Western values produced during Westernization period. Mentioned traditional values were a acceptance of a set of more ancient and original values in a nostalgic manner. Therefore, Toplum suggests that there is a similarity that is more than superficial between the Islamic fundamentalism and European fascism, and states that is not surprising that fundamentalism took root rather in most modern countries similar to European fascism. The 21st century is progressing as a religion age in the world according to Samuel Huntington, who has a similar approach with Fukuyama and who was efficient with his book titled Clash of Civilizations. According to Huntington, the West shall be the most powerful civilization both today and in the future. However, its power is decreasing in comparison to other civilizations. When the West brings its values forward and tries to protect its benefits, non-Western countries have faced a selection. Some of them try to imitate the West and unite with the West or try to beside the West. On the contrary, confusion and Islamic societies try to enhance their economic and military powers in order to create a balance and to resist against the West. Basic evidence of the world politics after the Cold War became the interactions between the Western power and culture and the power and rulership of non-Western civilizations. According to Huntington, the core states of the civilizations will be the sources of the order within the civilization and order between the civilizations by means of the negotiations to be performed with other core states. However, in a great portion of the 20th century, none of the Muslim countries had enough power, culture, and religious legality to be recognized as Islamic leader both by other Islamic countries and non-Islamic countries, and there were also no need for any Muslim country to undertake such a role. Huntington states that there are 6 states which have Islamic identity that is capable to undertake a core state role: Indonesia, Pakistan, Egypt, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Turkey. However, none of these countries meet the requirements of being an efficient state at the present. However, Turkey seems to have this potential. Turkey may become ready to take the more effective and honorable historical role as being the Islamic aggressor and enemy of the West, if Turkey gives up the disparaging beggar role at the door of Western world begging for membership. However, in order to realize this, Turkey will need to refuse the heritage of Atatürk rather strongly than Russia as their refusal of Lenin's heritage. Such a move also requires a leader holding power in some scale of Atatürk and who has gathered political and religious legality in him herself so that to make Turkey leave being a parted country and became a core state. Huntington also suggested that Singapore, Taiwan, Saudi Arabia, and a little bit less Iran are modern societies without being Western besides Japan. Although the attempts of Iran Shah to follow the Kemalist route caused a dense anti-Western reaction but did not cause any anti-reaction against modernization. According to USA, Al-Qaeda and similar anti-Western Islamic organizations are dangerous not only due to their armed militants but also due to supporting response of the Muslim society living under pressure authoritarian regimes to their sovereignty cause. As long as pressure authoritarian leaders survive in Arabic countries, Al-Qaeda and similar organizations shall continue to take the support of public and shall continue to increase their power. Daniel Bayman states that dictators like Mubarak are toppled by the pressure of protesters who defend democracy. Al-Qaeda shall lose its best argument to find partisans. Oppressive Arabic governments apply pressure to their citizens. Rise of less oppressive leaders shall deprive Al-Qaeda propagandists of this argument. According to Bayman, real democracy shall be a particular impact for Bin Laden and followers, and movements like free press, free entrepreneurs, and civil freedom shall reveal the issue which is used in minority for the birth of Al-Qaeda. It is believed that democracy hostility, that is Islamic fundamentalism, can be prevented with democracy. There are indications that the assessments of Fukuyama and Huntington on the rise of Islamic fundamentalism also correspondence to the policies of the decision makers in USA. Regime changes that shall be realized in secularized countries which follow the roadmap of Western countries in order to get modernized, which is accepted as antidote of Islamic fundamentalism, are considered to stop radicalism and anti-Western movements. Having a political Islamic party selected for the government after the election in 3 November 2002 in Turkey, which is suggested by Huntington to be the core country of Islamic civilization and that should return to its Islamic origin, supported the changes in wartime. Arab Spring rebellions should be taken into consideration within the context of the changes in wartime. The countries where rebellions that were called as Arab Spring experience were thought to be the countries having pressure regimes. Excluding this one, other common characteristics of these countries, there should be mentioned that these are under pressure of Islamic organizations and they have a secular state order respectively. The common point of the opponent groups is all require democracy. When we analyze that what kind of a state and society are wanted to be established by these dominant Islamist opponent groups, ideologically, we see they want to establish a state and society that are based on religious rules in spite of a democracy of a Western style. Bayard says that according to Greek philosopher Said Qutb, executed to death in 1966, jihad comprises of practices that causes a true Muslim to get away from the order of pre-Islamic age of ignorance and expand through mediation of persons based on Quran to armed struggles, to provide sovereignty of God on the world, to remove the sovereignty of human, to take the rulership from the misusers and to give it to God, and to give the power only to holy laws, and to remove the laws stipulated by human. All of these could not be made by praying and speeches. However, pragmatist proposals transformed the democracy concept into a slogan, which was met in sympathy in Western public opinion. However, when the real ideological identities were investigated, it is revealed that they are Islamic militants that continue their armed struggle. For example, some of the revolters in Libya were found to be the violence, pro-Islamic people who fight against USA forces in Iraq. The elements in Syrian rebellion, there is an issue that it was led by Islamic people, and there is no doubt the topple of Egypt state, President Mubarak, shall make Muslim brothers powerful, whereas Muslim brothers achieved to gain victory in the elections. Turkey, one of the countries having majority of Muslims in the society, is the only country which explicitly and clearly states it has a secular regime. The secular-like order in Tunisia, which is the most secular country of Arab world, was established on the basis of modernization of the religion, or making religious modernization rather than separating the religion and state order. Tunis is one of the countries which has a keen behavior against Islamic movements. Tunisia recognized Islamic movements as a threat against the regime and particularly wanted to eliminate the effects of the FIS movement in Algeria, the neighborhood country. One of the countries that has taken rigid measures against political Islamists was Syria. All of these countries were concerned that the society may tend to radical Islamic movements. The authors indicated that such concerns are not speculative concerns. When the first rebellion started against Hosni Mubarak in Egypt, public who demonstrated peaceful protest were struggling for tolerance in religion and for their freedom, and after Mubarak was toppled, it seemed that their wishes was coming true. However, during the period after Mubarak started to show indications that shall not be possible to build it up according to the expectations. Islamic movements that are suppressed by the Mubarak management found an environment to get free of this pressure during the rebellion and started to be active freely and started to utilize the new freedoms. However, they started to compete with the people who do not share the religious doctrines. One of the first victims of this term of conflict became the Christians living in Egypt. Syria started to be a geographical region where militants of radical religious organizations like Al-Qaeda and where they performed their inhumanity murdering actions. Furthermore, current secular regime in Syria became a fight of power struggle international fight with actions. The struggle of power in Syria became not only being a struggle between the Syrian regime and opponents, but also became a struggle between the USA and its allies and other ally groups, particularly led by Russia, China, and Iran. The mistake of USA was to expect people whose minds are shaped with religious doctrines could create a democratic and free society. However, Islamic fundamentalism gained power in the countries where Arab Spring experienced in contradictions to the foresight of USA. Empowerment of political Islamic parties and taking the power causes to foresee the possibility of a new Israel-Arab war. However, the difference between the Islamic people are only the good Muslims who cooperate with the West and the bad Muslims who do not, according to the statement of Mahmoud Hamdani. Making commitments in democracy is a tactical selection for the Islamic parties, because it is not possible to make a selection between the democracy and their religious doctrines, or to correlate the religious doctrines with democracy. Whereas, when we look at the historical background of Western countries, it is seen that modern nation-states and democracies were developed as a result of taking religious doctrines away from secular power fights. Emin Malouf states that it should be known that the response of Muslim world shall not be radical Islam without facing a dilemma brought by the obligatory modernization. Muslim world in Mediterranean was managed not on behalf of the religion, but on behalf of the nation. The thing brought the countries to independency was nationalists. All of them were not so explicitly prone to secularity and modernism. However, their mainstay had never been religion in some way they have put aside. Malouf states that Nasser is an implacable enemy of the Islamists. They tried to kill him, and he also executed many of their leaders. And to remember that during that period, militants of Islamic movement were enemies of Arabic world, and mostly the collaboration of the West in the view of the person on the streets. Then, what happened and how Islamic fundamentalism could find an opportunity to expand and develop? First of all, consecutive military failures of the nationalist executives as Nasser being in the first place, and also their inefficiency to solve the problems due to the underdevelopment led them to do a deadlock, and this established the social foundation of development of social Islam. After the end of the Cold War, returning to the past according to the wartime, together with collapse of socialism, religion gained power as a coherent ideology. Humas tried to change determinations, both struggling with the nature and with each other, and transformed the time to history. However, humanity did not always go forward during the transformation of time to history. During some ages, humanity had to experience some period which took them back to a more humanist level than the point they have reached that correspond up to centuries. For example, after the Fourth World War power of the fascism in Italy and Nazism in Germany and their policies meant a backward motion in respect of humanity. Adorno and Horkheimer analyzed the question why humanity is deep into a new kind of barbarism instead of getting in a real humanity state. In their book, Dialectics of Enlightenment, published in that year, if a civilized state like Germany, homeland of Kant, Beethoven, and Goethe, can construct factories in order to kill people with gas, how can the idea of progress in history have a meaning? The conclusion we can obtain from here that there is no guarantee for humanity to improve continuously. Karl Marx, human beings write their own history by themselves, but not according to their will, and within the circumstances they select, but within the conditions they face. Determined conditions coming from the past. The tradition of all past generations descend over the brains of the living one like a nightmare together, with its full weight. Jean-Jacques Rousseau also pointed out a similar situation by stating that human is born free and changed from all sides. However, human does not accept the conditions he lives in and continuously try to change the external determinants and try to get free with a continuous struggle. According to both, the most erroneous foresight amongst the other revealed at the end of Cold War was absolutely the belief that ideological struggles were thrown to waste bin of history. Both suggest that in this age of new ideas, the pushing out of things is irrationalism and reactionism after then the seeds of global liberation. Although both suggest that if rationalism is permitted to be dominant, the result shall absolutely be a conflict of civilization. The conflict, he means, is almost an ignorance conflict, as mentioned by Edward Said, rather than a conflict between the civilization as the theory of Samuel Huntington. When religious beliefs are included in the politics, irrationalism and reactionism shall start to be identified, and the solutions for current problems shall be in line with the religious doctrines and second in an ideal order coming from the past. If an economic collapse is experienced under these conditions, the fear about losing their works and security of increasing numbers of people and the increase in their beliefs that the daily politics does not serve for their purpose may be a powerful initiator for rise of fascist values. As Botet stated, since the word fascist is symbolized with the characters Time, Mussolini and Hitler, with accommodate perceptions during political groups of today are so willing to be identified as fascists. However, it is interesting that Francis Fukuyama and Ken Wood have found a similarity between the fascism in Europe and Islamic fundamentalism. By mentioning that the second fight of which fascism ideology discussed outside Europe focuses on Islamic war, both states when particularly fight against terrorism expense and the Iraq war in 2003 caused a violence and terrorism wave in the world. Fascism accusation was directed to extremist stance within the global Islamic community. It should be pointed out that the difference in social understanding between extreme stance and non-extreme stance and the difference between their point of views on state order are not very distinctive. When we look at the progress of humanity and any movements that establish political regimes where secular rulers and human product ideologies are determiners are identified with revolution concept rather than the political regimes that are determined by religious facts. The most important sample of this approach is French Revolution. On the other hand, the revolutions where religious facts start to determine the state order and social order, like in Iran Revolution, should be named as counter-revolution. Counter-revolution can also be stated as the return of human from a state to where human reacted by struggling against nature and each other backward to an order that was experienced in the past. In this context, the revolutions of America, France, Russia, and China are progressive revolutions, and the fascist revolution in Italy, Nazi revolution in Germany, and Islamic revolution in Iran can be identified as counter-revolution. We will have an opportunity to put the process, prepare the Arab Spring and its results into correct place in future if we can harmonize it with the change in wartime when we look backward within a time zone in future. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for the interesting paper. I also have a couple of questions. So now I will open the floor for discussion. I don't want to abuse my position as chair to lay out the questions first. So I see already an eager hand over there. So please, if you can introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Salih Yasun.
Yeah.
I will present my lecture this year.
Okay.
So my question is for Dr. Saruhan.
Not doctor.
Mr. Saruhan. Not yet.
Doctor to be.
Dr. to be. You mentioned that democracy has no religion. Then you said that the Arab democracies do not have to be secular. Isn't there a contradiction between these two statements? Do you think?
No, there is no contradiction between any religion and democracy. But of course, I cannot say the religions are compatible with also democracy, because democratic rules are being made by people. But in religion, the rules are being made by God. In democratic state, in democracy, you can challenge the rules. But in religion, you cannot challenge any rule because they are coming from God. There is no contradiction between secularism or unsecularism and democracy, but it's not precondition for democracy. Because democracy says I'm gonna give you the common good, not the best. Because the best is more objective term, the best for whom. But democracy is I'm gonna give you the common good, and for the common good, I'm gonna give you the democratic tools, such as election, or the political parties, or whatever, or freedom of media, or freedom of speech. So there is no any contradiction between secularism or anti-secularism and the freedom of the speech, as long as you don't insult any holy rule, like a Quran, or as long as you don't ignore any kind of holy day for the Muslim people or for the Jewish people. So I think we should know that democracy is a type of government, but the religion is the type of life. Democracy is also only looking at the how you should manage yourself. Because the republic says who should govern the state, and the answer is people. This is the republic. And the second question is, so how? The answer is democracy, if you are living in a democratic state. So the democracy is only small place in the people's life, government. But the religion is your life. In Islam or in Judaism, there is rule. Have to go to the restroom, have to go to the toilet. But in democracy, we don't have any such rule. How you are going to sleep. But in Islam, you know how to sleep. You should turn right. So there is a contradiction, but there is no also precondition. You don't have to be Muslim to be democratic. You don't have to be Jewish, or you don't have to be Christian. You can be atheist, but you can be democratic.
Yes, please.
My name is Sakarya. I'm a PhD candidate. And my question to Professor Omar, you summarized literature about social movements, and mostly focused on this satisfaction argument. But there is also a counter argument against the satisfactions. It says that satisfactions are only valid for years, so there should be a threshold against that dissatisfactions. I remember Timur Kumat's work about East European countries, revolutions in East European countries, and he says mainly that revolutions comes as a surprise. So he also argues mostly thresholds. But what do you see as a threshold in uprisings? It's my first question. And the second question is that when we compare Tunisia and Egypt, we see that there is a huge difference in terms of opposition in those countries. And mostly experts or academics, they see Tunisia as a better or accomplished democracy compared to Egypt. Egypt is seen as a failed, but Tunisia is seen as a better in terms of democratization or in terms of targets of revolution. So when we look at opposition, Tunisia is seen as a more secular. In Tunisia, you see more secular opposition, but in Egypt, Salafis and other groups, there's a mostly religious opposition. So I think it's a little contrary to your argument, because you had said states doesn't need to be secular to be a democratic country. So how do you see that opposition arguments in those two countries?
Okay, I'd like to start with the second question. You said Tunisia is secular and democracy. Egypt is not secular and not democracy. I think before that,
in terms of opposition.
I think before that, I also need to explain the secularism is two types: assertive secularism, passive secularism. Passive secularism is, for example, the United States or the England. The passive secularism means you give freedom to the religion when you separate religion from the state. But assertive secularism, you give freedom to the society when you exclude the religion from the people's life. So in assertive secularism, the religion is devil. But in passive secularism, religion is good. That's why you give him freedom. In Tunisia, I think it is assertive secularism, yeah, because in 2006 they also banned the headscarf in the public places. Ben Ali did that. But the opposition is secular and you say it is still positive for a democracy. But Egypt is not. I don't think so. Tunisia is a good example because of the opposition is secular. I think the reason why Tunisia is the best example because in Tunisia there's pluralism. The pluralism of the politics, the pluralism of the society, the pluralism of the culture. I mean, the people are divided into many groups. But in Egypt, there is strong polarization. The Muslim Brotherhood, the Islamist, and anti-Islamist. But in Tunisia, there is no strong division or strict division between the, for example, A or B. I think that's why the Tunisia is the good example. And maybe the other reason, Tunisia, is coming from the Tunisia has found in 1950s, and they received their independence by using diplomatic ways. So Habib Bourguiba was the first president of the Republic of Tunisia, and he negotiated with France, and they received their independence. But in Egypt, they have received their independence by fighting, by using military tools against England. It means the Egypt is militarized society, and Tunisia civil society. That's why I think right now the military plays important role because military says we found the state. This is our state, so I have to take the power. But in Tunisia, I think they don't say that, and Tunisia is police state, not military state. And the first question, you said, what is threshold?
In mental presence, because threshold is seen mostly as a counter-argument against dissatisfaction arguments. So how do you see that threshold?
Maybe, the Muslim Mubarak, for example, was ruling Egypt for 30 years. And Ben Ali is also the same. And the Gaddafi is, I think, more than 40 years was in Libya. So the threshold maybe was that the people said no. I mean, they lived very long under the dictatorial rules, and they used to survive for a time. But after a while, you said, "I don't have any power to survive." Maybe it was the end point, the uprisings. But the Eastern Europe and the Arab Spring is different. They call it the Bolshevik Revolution or the end of the Cold War. It's different from the Arab Spring.
Okay. Professor Said, and then we'll go there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is a question directed to you, but I think it has to both of you in a sense. And I'm slightly confused about the difference between counter-revolution and revolution in your account, because it seems to me that the only sustainable difference seems to be counter-revolutions are the one you don't like, and the other revolutions are the one you like. I'm not sure if it's more. But related to that question is, I'm not sure what the category of counter-revolution, what work it's doing. And I think that goes to both the presentations. What I've seen here is that you presented a taxonomy, and we disagree with where everything fits into, but it's not really explanatory. All they're telling you that this is this thing, this is this thing, but not telling us anything more than that. And the trouble with those taxonomic classification is that there is a problem in whether you are actually simply importing certain things from different historical experiences. So both of you are resting on the category of religion, which it seems to me, for example, even in this answer, you've talked about separation between church and state. And the problem for Muslim studies, there isn't really a church in a way that there was a Western Christian church. There's a very different experience from that. And you can say, well, it's church-like. But in the church-like, there's lots of problems in that. And also, you kept on using the category of Islamic fundamentalism. We all know that fundamentalism comes from a Christian literalist reading of the Bible. I don't dare anyone in this room to do a literalist reading of the Quran. It is impossible to do a literalist reading of the Quran. So it's not just a semantic point, because I can see that there can be some flexibility, but I'm not sure what work it is doing and what the distinction between counter-revolution and a revolution is, and how this fits together. Nor am I actually convinced that this kind of taxonomy you're presenting actually gives us greater explanation. All it tells us this fits in that. And the whole thing about situations like uprisings and rebellions, etc., is that they actually are disrupting the previous classification of schemes. And there's just no way of putting them back. If you remember, just 6 months before the Arab Spring, everyone was talking about, how is it that the Arab countries have avoided the way of democratization, why there will never be any transformation, etc., etc. Mubarak was preparing for the coming of his perpetual pharaohdom kind of thing, and no one actually thought that the regime was unstable. And this is the same thing with the Iranian Revolution. So I'm not convinced that this can't put together. You talk about the Cold War as using Huntington. The revolution in '79 happened 10 years before. No one in '79 thought the Cold War was going to finish in 10 years' time. It had nothing to do with that. It was actually the height of the Cold War was coming up in 1980s, in the 80s, and the operating. So maybe you can just comment on some of it.
I agree with point, but I think we should make a classification to explain some events, revolution, reform, or etc. etc. But I think we can explain as we try to explain in terms of historical developing process. I think if a revolution established more good, more well order according to betting times, the new situation is good, but a new order take the example background times. This new order is not better than X order.
That when you come to Germany, for example,
Yeah.
1943,
Yeah.
Germany was the most modern state.
Yeah.
It was in time of modernity.
Yeah.
If you look at the latest kind of literature there was no way that you could argue that the Nazi revolution was in any way backward. Who built the Autobots? Who built Potsdam? Who did all of those kinds of things? Who modernized Germany? Was through that. And it was a very popular regime. It was very popular up to 43.
Yes.
So I don't see how you know that in time. Similarly in the French Revolution. In the French Revolution, you have 2 decades of war. So you don't actually know the consequences of the French Revolution. And now, and many people among the Anglophone world would argue the French Revolution was is asking because it stopped a slow evolution for the Russian Revolution.
Yes, all of the revolutions bring the bad events and emerged destructive wars. But when we looked at the history in our time, we can say the French Revolution influence in all the world, and in our world is very good than X times. But we looked at the Nazis, Germany, and fascist Italy. We can say easily at this period was very bad, and humans go to background times, and we look at the Arab Springs period, and I can analyze when look at the post-Cold War era. I reached to result the Arab Springs emerged, influencing by the Western countries, especially United States strategies, and generally one person educated with religious doctrines, generally they perceive as modern values such as democracy, freedom of opinion, etc., etc. They don't construct any modern society and modern state. Yeah.
Sorry, we have to stop because we almost.
We have time.
Very 1 minute, 1 minute exactly. Yeah. Well, you can respond after because actually we ran out of time. So. Yeah.
But I just like say that I agree with you. The social science is not a rocket science, so no one can say 2 times 2 4 in social science. But we know we have a literature, so we have to make some classification. We need to know what's the movements, what's the revolution, or what's the case in the social science literature. And the counter-revolution and the revolution is also, I agree with you. In fact, there is no counter-revolution. In this point, I'm getting the definition that Gilbert Ashar from his source. Like he says, reaction and reactive revolution. Revolution and reactive revolution. So every revolution is the sum of the previous one. But also, the revolution is the mother of the following one, the next one. So maybe we need to know that they are all dependent in a state structure. And the last point, the Alexis Tocqueville says the most difficult part of the revolution is you don't know when it ends. So revolution is an open-ended process. It takes time sometimes.
Okay. Professor Baziga, I don't know if it's very urgent or you can take it later because we ran out of time.
I think it is urgent.
It is urgent, okay.
I wanted to ask this gentleman about the Bahraini crisis and the place you put for Bahrain, the biggest part of the Arab Spring. Usually we single out Bahrain from the old Arab uprising. So I wonder why you put Bahrain in that category because perhaps if Bahraini crisis were more discussed in the media and social movement category, it would have been a revolution. So I wonder why you would like to put it in that category, and if you can elaborate on that, because Bahrain is sometimes we don't talk. So in that sense, I think it's urgent to elaborate.
Okay. Yeah,
We got 1 minute. I'm sorry, not because Bahrain is small, but it has a grand status. So
we talk so much Bahrain because the Americans, the Fifth Fleet is placed in Bahrain. This is the reason why we talk so much Bahrain. And the second reason, Bahrain is the Shia majority, but the rulers are Sunni. And when the people rebel against the rulers, the Bahrain, they got help from the Gulf states, the GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council. And the states had, even I think France, had the Bahrain to crush the people to end the protest. Why it is weakest? Because the repression worked very well. Sometimes the reactive repression works bad. You have to say, make people more angry. But the Bahraini government used the force in a good way. There was no more reaction against the Bahraini government. Even they crushed the people. But in Egypt, when they shoot the people got more angry. So it didn't work that way.
But if I were you, I would put Bahrain in a special category, perhaps, not with Oman and Jordan, because the cases are not similar. You can define Bahrain in this special case anyway.
Maybe they are all kingdom. That's why I put them only in the same thing. But Morocco also is a kingdom. Yeah.
But thank you very much.
thank you very much. I think the debate will continue. And we have a few disagreements here, so this is good. We're not suffering from groupthink. Okay, I will have to conclude at this point, and thank you very much for your attention in attending this panel.